Those of you who've been to Western countries, United States particularly, will have noticed when you drive down freeways, there's congested traffic, heavy traffic in most lanes, except one lane. And what is that lane called? Sorry? HOV. HOV lane. HOV lane is called high occupancy vehicle lane. Okay? So when you get into, what it means is, if in your car you have 2 or more people, you can move on to the HOV lane. And it's such a pleasure to drive in that lane because every other lane is totally congested and you move effortlessly, smoothly to your destination well in time. The Gita puts you in the HOV lane in life. You don't have to just accept what I'm saying. But as we often say, Vedanta, the knowledge of the Gita, is a science, which means it can be experimented upon, it can be tried out in your own life and accepted only when you are convinced that it is true. So yesterday we spoke of excellence. And that excellence comes from 3 attitudes, 3 kinds of approaches to life. And that is sincerity of action, purity of heart, clarity of thought. Wow, you people are the best audience I've ever had. So, now today let's take a look at action. How action puts you in the fast lane to success, in the HOV lane. So, sincerity of action is a shift from what you are doing to why are you doing it? For what are you doing it? Are you doing it only for yourself? Then the highest action, the supposedly top-end action, becomes very poor quality action. And so therefore you don't get the success, you don't get happiness, you don't get anything. Krishna, throughout the Gita, keeps saying this. He's addressing Arjuna, but through Arjuna he's getting at all of us. He's saying, why are you doing what you're doing? Na siddhim, na sukham, na param gatim. With this self-centered, selfish attitude towards life, you won't even get success. Forget about happiness. It's a myth to believe that you can achieve success or prosperity through selfishness. And the sooner you smash this myth, the better it is for you. It's a myth to believe that you will be happy through selfishness. The sooner you overcome this, the better it is for you. And so, when you act in life, the Gita says that you can act with one of 2 attitudes. Either with the attitude of taking, grabbing, or with the attitude of giving, contributing. We all know that we ought to function with this attitude of giving. This is not new to any of us. But the problem is we're not able to implement it. And we're not able to implement it because we don't understand it in entirety. The moment we speak of giving, you recoil in fear. My God, what do I have to give now? You don't have to give anything. You just have to think of giving. We're all focusing on acts of giving. Nobody in the world wants your acts of giving. But just the thought of giving. Why can't you even think of it? Why do you have to be so tight-fisted about even your thoughts? So, see, in every sphere of activity, you don't have to change your action, you don't have to change the field of activity, you simply have to think, stretch your mental resources to accommodate the interests of others. Whether you are the secretary of a building society or the CEO of a company or an ordinary citizen of the city or nation. It has nothing to do with how important a role you have to play or how small a role that you're playing. It has something to do with just the attitude. The other day I got a call from a person in Bangalore saying, I have this huge temple, I have so much of land, and I have spent 3 crores on the construction of a new temple, a new whatever it is. And the grand opening is going to be in a few months' time. And after giving this long story, and all the celebrities of India are coming to Bangalore for the inauguration. And then he says, I want you to come and give a lecture. But quickly he says, but I have no money to give. I can't give a donation. And I felt so sorry for him that I actually told him, don't worry, I'll send you a check by courier as my donation towards you, because you're so poor that you can't give. Without asking, he says, no, I can't give. This is what we mean, the attitude of grabbing, You want to then go boast to people that, I have so-and-so coming, so-and-so coming, so-and-so coming. But I'm not going to pay them. I said, who asked you in the first place? I don't ask because people don't want to give. And there's no point in extracting money from people who don't have this attitude of giving. And yet, today, this morning, there was a young student from a college here in South Bombay who went out of his way to call me. We have these youth programs, a 3-day workshop for young people, young adults between the ages of 18 and 30. And we were looking for a suitable venue in South Bombay. I don't know how this young man got to know of it. I hadn't asked him. Nobody had asked him. He went well out of his way. And mind you, he's just a student. What resources could he have before him? But it's the spirit, it's the attitude of giving. And he did it. He called me, he took me to the place, he introduced me to the person in charge there, he showed me the venue, everything was perfect. They called this afternoon and confirmed, they said, tomorrow morning we'll confirm it. In fact, thanks to this one young student, one young man who has this attitude of giving, perhaps we'll be able to have a youth program in South Bombay. We've already announced one in Juhu in December. But this is it. You don't have to be wealthy for the attitude of giving. You don't have to have a great amount of resources or connections or contacts or networking or any such thing. You simply have to have this attitude of giving. And nobody wants to stretch. See, he didn't have to do very much. He just had to connect 2 people that he knew to make a wonderful thing happen, because he himself feels that these values should be communicated to young adults. Now the question is, why can't you do this? I'm not suggesting you go looking for halls, please. That's not the thing. And not even for us. For anybody. For a neighbor. For a relative. There are people who can't stretch even for their own children. There was a lady who came fretting and fuming the other day saying, I'm constantly fighting with my 17-year-old son. I said, what? Fighting with your son? Now, if you are in a situation where you're fighting with your own son, who will you not fight with? If you can't feel that sense of oneness with your own children, that you have to badger them and get after them and then go complaining that you're fighting with your children, then who are you going to give to is the question. So, this is just an attitude of giving. Now, what the Gita asks us to do is, both the choices are available to you. Attitude of grabbing, taking, going for freebies, going for discounts, negotiating and beating down somebody on his price. Or having an attitude of giving. You operate with both. Both are accessible to you. Both are available to you. And see what happens for yourself. Experience what it is to grab, take. That you're experiencing all the time. Experience what it is to give. Again, we're saying you don't have to give anything. Just the thought. There's a gentleman here, a very fine person. Every time he drives a car, he thinks the roads are made for the pedestrians. The pedestrian must have right of way. And when he's a pedestrian, he thinks the people in cars have right of way. Whereas we have the opposite. When you're driving, see, all of us are pedestrians sometime. When we're driving, when we're in a car, we think, I should have right of way. And when we are crossing the road to go somewhere, we think the pedestrian should have the right of way. But to think that the other person has the right of way and to yield is a sign of refinement. So now the question arises that in spite of knowing that we should function with the attitude of giving, why is it so difficult? What you need to think is, why am I not giving? Let's take a few reasons that we give, excuses actually. One person says, it's painful to give. It is. Initially, it's painful. But as we saw yesterday, that which gives you pain in the present, momentary pain, gives you everlasting happiness. Once you taste the joy of giving, you will never go back to taking. Second thing, there's a class, we have these weekly classes, you must have been told about it. Every Wednesday here at Prempuri Ashram, every Tuesday at Bandra, and every Sunday morning at Prabhadevi. So you don't have a chance to escape. Some people say, oh, what to do evenings, I work late. Then Sunday morning. Then they say, no, weekends I have to spend with my family. Then weekdays. So anyway, we have these classes. At one of these classes, before I could finish saying giving, one lady jumped at me. She said, oh, but I'm so busy doing so many things at work, and I have to come home and look after my family and children and all that. There's no time. What would you say to that? No time for what? We're not asking you to give your time. We're not asking you to set aside resources. We're not asking you to do any such thing. The Gita simply says, attitude, a shift in attitude. And you don't need time for a shift in attitude. You only need the will to do it. So that's smashed. Next is, someone else says, oh, but if I start giving, the whole world will take me for a ride. Then what will happen to me? Examine that statement. Look around you. The fact of the case is that nobody in the world wants to take from a giver. The only way of understanding it is indiscriminately give and see what happens. In the United States, one of the most difficult things is cooking, because everyone has to cook themselves. They don't have a Maharaj like you and me, to come and cook. So when they have a party, it's impossible for one person to cook for everyone. So what they do is, they get together and each one brings a dish. And notice this time in San Francisco, there was a lady who apparently constantly dodges and gives some reason or the other why she should not bring a dish. And in the same group, there's another lady. Now this lady who cheats in the sense, it's an innocent thing. She doesn't like to work, so she doesn't bring a dish. All the others get together and say, now punishment for you. Next time you have to bring 2 dishes. On the other hand, in the same group, there's one lady who's assigned one particular dish and she brings 3 dishes. She has this tremendous attitude of giving in every sense of the term, but when it comes to food, definitely she has. So to her, they tell her, next time, whatever her name is, she said, you don't bring anything. If you bring anything, you're disqualified. You'll have to go home. So the truth of the matter is, nobody likes to take from a giver. Everybody wants to take from a taker. So that is also smashed. And in the end, you benefit the most. So there is no such thing as sacrifice. Remember that. When you sacrifice for someone else, the person who benefits the most is you, not the recipient of your service. I mean, the recipient also benefits, but the greatest person who benefits is you yourself. And there is a fantastic story, a real life situation, which gets this message across. There was a father, parents, a young couple. Their child was born, and something went wrong during delivery, and he was born handicapped. So he wasn't responding to anything, and the doctors told them, so you better institutionalize. When the child was 11 months old, the doctors told them that you better institutionalize him because you're going to find it difficult taking care of him. But this young couple decided not to allow, they fought institutionalizing the child. And they went to a university and said, why don't you give him something by which he can communicate with us? Give him a computer, give him a way of this. And they said, no chance. There's nothing going on in his brain. Then the couple told them, said, there's nothing going on in the brain? Take a chance. Tell him a joke and see what happens. So the doctors told a joke to this child, who for all practical purposes was totally like a vegetable. And he laughed. And then they convinced these university people that, look, you have to do something for him. So they made a computer and they made a device by just the pressure with his forehead, a particular part of his head which he could move. He began to type out on the computer and communicate with his father, with his parents. And thus it was that he was sent to school. And now in school, there was an accident and a boy was paralyzed. So they had a fundraising race for him. And this child, the little boy, typed out to his father that how nice it would be. When I saw this race, when I saw people running, for the first time in my life, it gave me great joy. For the first time in my life, I did not feel handicapped. And the father saw this look of joy on the son's face and decided that he's going to race with him. So he put him in a wheelchair and decided to run a race. Now, this father hadn't run at all in his life. He hadn't walked more than a mile. And how is he going to run 6.5 miles? But he did it. And at the end of it, the father says, I felt handicapped for the first time in my life. But then this father and son team did the marathon, which is 26.2 miles, 85 times. He pushed his disabled son in the wheelchair. And then he went for what they call as triathlon, means running, swimming, cycling. So this father, who had never run in his life, who did not know how to swim, and who hadn't cycled since he was 6 years old, ended up winning race after race with his son. And then he did it so well that everybody told him, why don't you do it alone? He said, that's impossible. I can't do it alone, because that which motivates me to come up with this superlative performance is the smile on my son's face. So why I'm telling you all this story is, when you act in a spirit of giving, when you function with just this thought of giving, miraculously you transcend your own barriers, you rise above your own limitations, and you come up with absolutely fantastic, breathtaking performances. This capacity is there in each one of us. It doesn't matter whether you're talented, you're gifted, you're intelligent, or you're literate or illiterate. This capacity, every one of us has. And anyone in the world